becoming ill and not being able to um, uh, not being able to go anywhere, not having the resources how they normally would have. This affected our operations with having limited employees. We were running into shortages, and then with running into shortages, that meant that some of those resources were being shut down, and that flows down to the tribal members in our communities. One of the things that did assist along the way was the CARES funding that was provided through the federal government. That assisted the nation, and through that, the nation, one of the biggest resources that benefited from that was technology. And just as we're doing right here right now, we're doing the Zoom and the WebEx. So that resource did assist the Ho-Chunk Nation with providing that service in a different manner to the tribal members and for the employees, so they're allowed to work remotely. As for the needs in the community, there is still that need out there. As a mother and a grandmother, I have experienced that same hardship with my family, and with relatives losing family members, and it is still devastating to us all.
And then Miss Stanley, how has it affected your job?
She's on mute.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, acting like I'm brand new. So, a lot of similarities with Phyllis and her experiences. The financial impact to the Ho-Chunk Nation government, has been devastating. And I don't think that a lot of people fully understand that, even now. We laid off initially close to 60% of our staff, and we're able to recall some people back, but I think now we're at about 54% of our pre-pandemic staffing levels, and we are still doing the same amount of work. We still have the same mission. People need our services oftentimes even more now, and so we are doing the same amount of work with almost half of the original staff. So there's a lot of burnout, and people are pushing through. I think the bulk of our staff, there were a few of our divisions that were all laid off initially, but the majority of the staff that we currently have, we have worked throughout this 2-year period without breaks. And we have experienced, the same things that other people have experienced on top of the workload, which is, the nonstop community losses, the mental health challenges of the pandemic have been really hard on the clients that we work with. And we have seen a number of people who our workers have worked with for sometimes decades who have passed away in the last 2 years. And so that's been very traumatizing and really difficult on our staff. Trying to make the same things happen with half of the money that we had a few years ago, that's a big challenge. And Phyllis talked about technology. We identified early on. So the social services department, the bulk of our staff work in one building, which is off-site from the TOD or the executive offices. And our building was very overcrowded. And so we really had to scramble to get a lot of people rotating on remote work schedules or working remotely as often as possible. And that at first was a challenge, but now it has really proven to be a benefit because um, for the Ho-Chunk Nation, one of the big challenges for a social service agency, well, for a lot of the services offered through the nation, is that we don't have a contiguous land base. So that means we are serving tribal members, sometimes in a 15 county area throughout the state, sometimes around the world. And it's very challenging to have a few workers who might have to drive 3 hours one way to deliver something or to have a meeting and then turn around and come back. So technology has really served us well in the fact that we can offer a lot of these services remotely.
Okay. And a question for you specifically. What all does social services handle? Like what departments are within that?
Oh gee, I don't have notes, so you're
Okay, that's fine.
making me work here.
All right.
We have a domestic abuse division. We have child and family services, which handles child welfare, Indian child welfare, investigations for children at risk of abuse and neglect and elders at risk of abuse and exploitation. I'm sorry, my dog is barking.
That's okay.
And let's see, CFS, who else? Oh, we have community supportive services.
Mm-hmm.
They do, they handle childcare assistance and do a lot of preventative work and outreach. We have youth services. We have tribal aging unit. We have the child support agency. And we also have the independent living facility. I believe that's it.
Okay. So a question to either of you, or both of you from each of your perspectives, what was the effect of COVID on the community right away? So right when it started, what really happened with you guys?
I think there was a lot of fear.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to agree with
A
you.
lot of uncertainty. We're hearing about this weird virus. Scientists don't understand it. No one understands it. We just know that people are dying from it and it's contagious. And I think there was a lot of fear. And then to know that it impacted elders, in a different way. I know I was thinking about like our language and our culture and how we have to keep our elders safe. So I think there was a lot of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if either of you have notes on this, but would either of you happen to know anything about the cases in the Ho-Chunk community? Was it a high number, low?
So I can give you a report, and this is as of January, last month,
Mhm.
2022,
Mhm.
and this was provided by the Ho-Chunk Nation Health Department.
Okay.
So as of January 2022, the highest number of positive tests were 260. The highest percentile positive was 53.2% since March of 2022. The highest number of tests administered was in November of 2020 with 978.
Okay.
While the numbers of tests administered, these are just the tests, were in 2022 from January 1st to the 22nd. And this was 489. And this is by the Ho-Chunk Nation Health Department. That doesn't include outside of that. And all this data that I'm providing to you is data that is preliminary, and so it may have changed as the cases are investigated. And it gives me a chill because as much as as a tribal leader, I tried to promote the use of a mask, and to get vaccinated, but at the same time, I want to be respectful to those that have that preference, and that have a right to not get vaccinated. But I really feel for community members when we lose a tribal member and I hear that they're not vaccinated, you know.
Okay, going back to what you said about people being vaccinated or unvaccinated or wanting to wear a mask or not, have you guys seen a different opinion on that in the Ho-Chunk community versus the overall Black River community? Because I know in Black River as a whole, it's been a bit of a controversial thing, like whether you want to be vaccinated or not and whether you want to be wearing a mask or not. So how has that been in the Ho-Chunk community?
Personally, like I live in Black River Falls, and so going to the grocery store or, that's pretty much all I've been doing lately. The, daily trip to Walmart, and the only people that I consistently see wearing masks are Ho-Chunks. I don't know, we do have a mask mandate in the nation, and we are in social services, we're primarily working remotely right now. So, and I do see some pushback too. Some people are, they're hot and I don't like them. And I think it probably depends on what type of work you're doing. Like, I really feel for the people that are in casinos and they have to be in person, dealing blackjack on the table, and they're wearing a mask for 8 hours a day. I think there's some different factors that weigh into that.
So right now, one of the topics that's being discussed is the vaccination mandate. Should all employees nationwide within the Ho-Chunk Nation be required to be vaccinated? That is a discussion that is out there. There's differing opinions among legislators, and it depends on their viewpoint, and it depends on the area they represent, and there's just a lot of factors that play into it, where they're coming from with that.
Very true. So I think you mentioned it, but what are the current recommendations from the Ho-Chunk government regarding COVID? Is there a mask mandate, I think you said?
Yes, there is a mask mandate, indoors, social distancing, and there isn't a requirement right now to be vaccinated, although I know there are certain, I believe the health department might have their employees that are vaccinated, and then there's certain employees that are, because of their funding, that was a requirement, and that wasn't, that came from the federal level, from my understanding, but I could be corrected as well on that. But right now it's the mask mandate, and then the social distancing, and then if you're sick, if you're ill, then it's best to not come to work or stay away.
And then Rosella, how have those things affected social services? Like, do you guys have to do anything differently? I know you said you're working remotely, so is there anything else along those lines?
Yeah, it's affected us quite a bit, and of course it depends on the division, because the services offered in each division, they run, they're very different. They can be on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of life and just what services are offered. I would say it has really impacted us as far as visitation. like for children or even elders, the ability to meet with people face to face. For quite a while, hospitals and long-term care services, or nursing homes, rehab homes, were not allowing people to come in, so we were having to navigate having virtual visits, oftentimes with people who don't have a smartphone, or that was pretty challenging early on. And now again with the Omicron, we have at times struggled to have thorough enough PPE. Like if we have workers that have to enter into someone's home, or various cases, we've had some different quarantine issues where we've had multiple staff exposed, say to different members of a family who test positive. It's a lot of, I guess, building the plane while you're flying it. People keep saying, well, do you have a policy about this? Do you have a policy about that? No, we don't, because things change faster than we can write a policy. So we're just, really doing our best to stay flexible and meet needs as best as we can while staying safe and trying to keep our staff safe and the clients safe.
Okay. So I think it was said once before, but we've seen a change in mental health come along with COVID, and especially after the quarantine. So how has that been from either of your perspectives? So you work in legislation. Have you seen any effects of that?
I have seen, and I'm giving you the perspective of my own personal view of when I've encountered tribal members in the community. There are people that reach out to me that just need somebody to talk to. It affects their mental health. If they cannot go somewhere, if they cannot connect with somebody for services, it affects our tribal members when they have a relative that has passed away and they haven't been able to grieve, or they don't have that service to have somebody to be there to assist them. It's hard for people to sometimes open up, given that the circumstances that we're in.
Rosella, how has it been for social services? I feel like it would affect your job even more. So has there been like a rise in cases or anything with your employees that you've seen?
I would have to really look at the specific numbers. I can just tell you, I guess, my instincts. I think that it has definitely affected social services. I think and I want to say specifically for tribal members. Well, I think it's across the board. It has affected everyone. I think for Ho-Chunk people, we are supposed to love one another, and we're supposed to gather around and comfort each other. When we grieve or when we're sick, we're supposed to that's who we are, and that's how we're supposed to be. And so being unable to do that for each other as family members and as community members and as co-workers has really been hard. And just like layer upon layer, there's the fear of COVID and the symptoms, and then there's the fear of spreading it to your family or other people, and then there's the additional a rise in suicides, which we have seen in our community, and a rise in addiction related accidents, and a rise in all of these things that are happening to our loved ones, or people that we know, or even in the community, and that has such a ripple effect. And it's like layer upon layer upon layer of kind of like fear and uncertainty and grief, and then we can't even get together to like encourage one another and eat together and uplift each other. And so I think, and I would guess that it's like that around the world, probably not just for us but for everyone around the world. So there's that long answer.
My grandmother passed away last November, not this last one, but the one before that, so 2020, I believe. And it wasn't COVID related, but I definitely get what you guys mean, like not being able to like meet back up, like having the funeral, it was sad. And then like we had to like try to stay like separated a little bit when we went and did all this stuff for that. And then it was a little bit more controversial at the time. I think people have gotten a little bit more relaxed, but we were nervous that people were going to be upset at us for having people over after the funeral. But like it felt like the right thing to do. We wanted to have everyone included.
No, disconnected.
Okay. Well, for the moment, we can pause it and we will pick back.
There we go.
Alright, so like I said, my grandma had passed away, and at the time, I don't think it was very like good to be having people around. It wasn't like right at the beginning of COVID, but it was like still pretty early on in it, so we were a little bit nervous that people would be like upset at us for having like a big group together, but it just felt like the right thing to do for her, so we did that. Moving on to the next little section, we had previously mentioned the economy of the Ho-Chunk Nation, and that it took a bit of a blow. So would either of you like to speak on that?
I guess I can speak a little bit on it. What I'm going to say is that the Ho-Chunk Nation economy did take a huge hit on it. Like our neighboring communities across the United States, businesses, they also took a huge hit on it. Our revenue was down by quite a bit. I don't think we will ever fully recover from that. Along these same lines, do I think things will ever get back to normal? I don't think we want to get back to normal. I think we want to be better than what we were, and we want to think of creative ways. In this pandemic, nobody, I believe, has ever been through this. So it has taught myself, me as an individual, a lot of things. And looking at my coworkers, workers and colleagues and, tribal members, I bet you if you were to ask them that, they would probably say the same thing.
That's definitely a good way to look at it, to take what you can from it and learn and grow as individuals and as a community. So Rosella, did you have anything to speak on regarding the economy?
Everyone get yourself.
I think you're muted.
Newbie.
That's okay.
I think, just like Phyllis said, it devastated us at first, and it has really challenged us, but there are definitely some benefits to how things have played out, and a lot of things to consider and discuss moving forward.
So with the economy, I believe we haven't had per cap in a while, am I right? Okay. Do you have any more to share on that? I'm not super well versed in the topic.
So right now, I guess it would be too early for me to speak on that. Again, that is something that we just right now we just really don't know. So.
And looking back a little bit further, the casino closed. Like, right at the start of it, right? And it was closed for some time. Do you know?
Yes.
Do you know how long?
I can't recall how many months that was. Do you remember, Rosella, how long that was?
I kind of think like 3 or 4 months, maybe.
Was it 3 or 4 months?
I
Okay.
think it was longer than that.
Because it opened up at the end of summer, so from
Okay.
March to
Yeah.
the end of summer. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right because I think it was like this happened in March, so yeah, that was about right, about June or
And
July.
I don't know too much about it, but is that where some of the revenue comes in from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So was that like part of like the big blow to the economy, or was it a mix of things?
Yes.
That was the big blow to the economy.
Okay.
That, you know,
Yes.
gaming dollars, that's what funds our government.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, definitely unfortunate. I hope we can bounce back at least a little bit. So another interesting thing that I feel like happened within the Ho-Chunk community within these past 2 years is we got a new president, and I believe there was some like controversy regarding him. But how do you guys think he handled things as the top executive?
Well, I can't speak for the president.
Yes.
But I believe that overall the nation and with the people that were in leadership, I believe that they did the best that they can do for our people.
Definitely some hard circumstances.
Yes. Yes.
Rosella?
I would agree, you know, I think hindsight is 2020, and probably if you ask the president, he, you know, probably has a list of, well, I would have done this differently and that differently, but you know, nobody knows. He, you know, no one has ever managed the executive branch of the Ho-Chunk Nation during a pandemic before.
Definitely.
And I think that across the board, no one has ever been a legislator, you know, in the year following a pandemic in the Ho-Chunk Nation. No one has ever been an ED or a frontline worker, or, you know, we're all really and truly doing the best that we can, and sometimes making very important last minute decisions with very little information, because that's what we have to do.
I did a similar interview with a couple people from the Jackson County Health Department and a couple people from the hospital, and I just wanted to say the same things to you guys. I feel like, in general, I feel like the Ho-Chunk community has handled COVID well, and I said the same to the ladies from the health department. But yeah, definitely some really weird circumstances, hard circumstances, a lot of new things to deal with, and I feel like in general we've done a good job. So moving on from that, just like I said in the last interview I had with those other ladies, to give some insight to the future viewers, I was wondering if either of you had a story or personal experience regarding COVID that you'd like to share.
Well, I do. I didn't put much thought into it really until we were having this conversation, but I remembered, you know, what it was like when we, you know, got the directive for these mass layoffs, and some of my directors stayed in my office with me until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and we cried together, and you know, out of fear for what was going to happen and having to lay so many people off, and the understanding that you know, on top of the fear of you know, COVID and illness, that, you know, we understood that people were losing their livelihood and they were losing their health insurance for themselves and for their families. And we, you know, we cried, and the EDs, we had to sign a letter to each and every person that was laid off. And in social services, that was over 100 people. And every single one of those letters that I signed, I prayed for those people and I prayed for their families. And, you know, sorry to get emotional, you know, this has been really hard, and I
Technical difficulties. Hold on a moment. It's gonna be crooked. It's fine. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
So one of the experiences that I wanted to share, I guess, with you is that when COVID happened, you know, like we've talked about, nobody really knew how serious it was. In my family, my Dega and my Chewy had both gotten sick. My Chewy was in the hospital. She ended up getting transferred, and she was on a ventilator. And then my Dega ended up coming into the hospital like 24 hours from that time, and it happened so quick that when he came in, not knowing the you know, the effects of it, at that time the vaccination wasn't even available. He ended up passing away, and when he passed away, my Chewy wasn't there. And so, like it was mentioned, this was a whole different way of how we do things as people. Ho-Chunk people are used to getting together, and that time of grieving had to happen a whole different way. And it was pretty much foreign to us, and the only thing that I could keep thinking of is that you know, we're taught to be strong, and you take from it, you know, what you can, and somewhere along the way, someone's going to need what you're going through to help them. And so that's you know, I think about that, and I from that time I thought, what can I do as a community member, as a family member, and there wasn't really much that I could do, but I did decide that you know, if I could take out masks to a couple of people, you know, or to different families, even, you know, sanitizer, or help a family that couldn't leave their home, you know, I would reach out to them if I heard about it, and just take, you know, groceries to them, or, you know, just the basic things that they might need to get them through, you know. So that's that has helped me to carry forward, you know, like what I had to deal with I guess grieving over a family member.
I had an experience. I have had COVID just recently, but that's not my story. I think it was the end of summer of 2020. My dad got COVID, and he works in social services, Chad Blackdeer, and he got COVID, and my mom got COVID, but he had it like a lot worse. He has like a bunch of lung problems. He has asthma, other stuff. One time he got an x-ray and they said that he had like child-sized lungs, which I think is funny, because if you ever see him, he's like a big guy, but his lungs are like the size of like a child's. So all that stuff plus COVID and pneumonia, he did end up in the hospital, and he was on oxygen, and that was just like a really hard and scary time for me and my family, because I think it was like 9 days that he was in the hospital, but I'm happy he recovered well from that. But it was definitely like a scary and hard time, which I think is an overarching theme of COVID in general. It's not a fun time. For the history project, usually it is written or typed out of some sort, but we are doing a video, as we all see. So it's a video, a podcast, and it's going to be transcribed, and this is the first time we're doing that. So I started a little tradition where we share a piece of advice for the future listeners, since we are history as it's happening. So my piece of advice is to just like use your support systems, because like I said, like we all said, it is not a very fun time, definitely not the best circumstances to be in, and we all have hard moments. So if you have a good support system, use them. If you need to build one, but just make sure you're having the support and help that you need. So if either of you ladies have a piece of advice.
I'm gonna keep it simple and say be well, be safe, and be kind to one another, because we don't know from day to day what's going to happen.
Very true.
She's on mute.
I think you're muted.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think mine is to, lean on the Creator, strengthen your faith, and wash your hands.
Yes, that is a good one. So thank you ladies for coming on tonight. I feel like it went well. It was a good thing to do, share history. So that is a wrap on today's episode of History as It's Happening, and thank you everybody for coming.
Peeny Gigi.
Thank you.